Hello out there in TV land. It's your boy Aunt Mo, and welcome to the network first of all, and welcome to the Late Night Shift Live. Man, let me tell you, the Late Night Shift Live seeks to shift the perspective of the culture, giving you unadulterated truth, one story at a time. This is the reality. Hype is overrated. So we don't seek to have hype here. We just seek to keep it real. Real player, real live, and real. You feel me? I can't make it a week on this show without technical difficulties. Production is coming. But welcome once again to the Late Night Shift Live with your boy, your host, Anthony Moore, for those of you who may not know for sure. And while I have your attention, and I already just letting people know, as we have Miss Reese in the building, and we have that boy, Randy C. Mays, in the building. For whatever the reason, folks, I can't see comments, but we going to get that figured out at some point. All right, let me see. There we go. All right, let's start this over. We got my boy Randy C. Mays saying smash that like button, smash that share button. And we have Ms. Reese saying, hey, Aunt Mo, we still having the same issues, but we're going to keep it pushing. It is what it is. But welcome to another episode of the Late Night Shift Live with your boy Aunt Mo. And I won't belabor the point. Let's get into it before we get into it. So with that being said, the first thing on the docket for tonight, we got LeBron James in the building, folks. LeBron James, as the most famous commercial of him has came out in recent years. And so there's a lot that we haven't discussed over here in the last couple weeks talking about the late night shift. And LeBron and his antics are one of those things that we must get into. So for those of you who may not know, LeBron James just recently did The Decision, Part 2. And for those of you who may have been thinking that he was contemplating retirement, that he may have been contemplating going to a different team, no, we were all hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok, all of those things that the Honorable Malcolm Little talked about once many years before. And it ended up being a Hennessy VSOP ad. Now, I'll be honest with you. I wasn't entertained by this, not one bit. It is actually quite pathetic, in my opinion, of LeBron James to continue to take us down this rabbit hole where everything that he does is supposed to be this grandiose thing where he, even going to the Lakers, was, I'm going to take not my talents to South Beach, so to speak, as the first decision was, which was a mockery within itself. And it also opened the doors for a lot of guys to start jumping team to team, the KDs of the world. We don't even have to go down that rabbit hole of these super teams that were birthed. People love to bring up the Boston Celtics and make it seem like they were the first super team of this generation. Here's the one thing that we have to realize about that situation was those guys were not in their prime. Paul Pierce, certainly Ray Allen, and Kevin Garnett were nowhere near their prime when they joined forces. But that is a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. Let's go ahead and get into the nonsensical things that have been LeBron James. As I said, the decision, Hennessy VSOP, don't have a problem with Hennessy, but the idea of your drawing to replicate something that was truly a moment in time to sit down and talk about a alcohol ad is actually just egregious, right? And if Randy C. Mays is still on here, one of the biggest LeBron James fans that you will ever know, that you can meet. He is one of a part of the new crowd that doesn't stay loyal to the team. They follow the player. Not mad at it. I'm a Mavericks fan. I was a LeBron fan to a certain extent, but once we start hopping team to team, I can't respect it. As much as I was happy to see him win his first ring, I was also equally as happy when my Dallas Mavericks took down their 2011 team and beat the brakes off of them in 6. So thank you, LeBron, for that memory. So here's my reality. LeBron James has been showing us who he is for quite a long time, right? And for those of you who may follow me on Facebook, I said some things. Don't think I got much of a reaction, and I'm glad you didn't because I was just trolling. We can never take away from the greatness of what LeBron has been on the NBA court. We also cannot take away from the family man, starting the school, all of those great things. You know, reaching billionaire status. You've done a lot of great things, but you have also done some things that we don't care for within the community. And I'm talking about sports fans. Like I said, the initial decision, switching teams, the reading of unnecessary the fake reading of books, like the autobiography of Malcolm X, but then you can't tell us anything from the book. We know that you rubbed Russell Westbrook the wrong way. In fact, so much that Russell Westbrook didn't want to sign a Lakers jersey. He signed the Clippers, he signed the King, all of these other teams that he's played for, OKC, but refused to sign the Lakers jersey and stated, I quote, he got tired of LeBron with the fake stuff. We won't say what it actually is, but it's the fake stuff, right? Doing a podcast with your coach where we act like you didn't know about certain things, right? Can never be mad at the nepotism that was displayed. I've spoken about that before. Being able to get your son on the NBA team. We all know that LeBron James Jr. would not have been drafted if it wasn't for the influence and the impact that his father has had on the game. But yes, lobbying for coaches. There's this narrative, and I saw it on Speak Easy, where they make it seem like LeBron has always done the best with the least, as if outside of that first run to the NBA Finals where you got swept by the San Antonio Spurs, who are actually looking quite dangerous now. Wemby did my Mavericks something dirty, 40-15, but that's a whole nother story. It's the idea that outside of that first run that you made to the finals, that you couldn't call your own shots. I'm actually quite tired of the narrative that LeBron, who was winning easily upwards of 50 and 60 games per year with Cleveland, where they would often run into an opponent who was just wired differently than them, running into the Orlando Magic, where y'all didn't have the length nor defense to keep up with a team like that, where Dwight Howard was a complete juggernaut, defensive player of the year, just a terror for you guys, surrounding himself with actual shooters. LeBron James has had his way in the NBA. And to take the route that he took to leave Cleveland, to make the decision to go to Miami, to play with if you can't beat them, then join them, was something that I personally and a lot of other people cannot get past. So it just is what it is. You've had a litany of players that you've played with. The AD trade. You're going to make us believe, LeBron, that you had in no way knew that Luka was going to be coming to the Lakers and that AD was going to be leaving in the trade. It's all lies and nonsense that you have spewed to us for years now, and I, for one, am quite sick of it. Not to mention that horrible movie where you redid Space Jam. Everything that you have done has been a chasing after other GOATs. Not saying that you're not a GOAT of this generation, you could just never be my GOAT. And we all know LeBron James doesn't care. He wouldn't think twice about what the Late Night Shift Live probably has to think about him. But I hope that he would. Because the reality is that you need somebody in your corner to be honest. And to tell you that a lot of the moves that you are making, although they may touch your bottom line, are not moving the needle. You don't have the aura of a Michael Jordan, Michael Jeffrey Jordan. You don't have the competitive fire or edge of a Kobe Bean Bryant. And it is being shown. Yes, you have 4 titles. The bubble one, I don't believe we should count, but I'll give it to you, my brother, if you want it. The things that you have done do not lend to being talked about as one of the GOATs. And that is the thing that we have to be real about. And what am I referencing to? Being the husband to one wife. Admirable. Being a good father. And mind you, we don't know. You have one in the NBA, you have one in Arizona that is on his way, and you have your daughter. Not mad at any of that. But that has nothing to do with what you do on or off the court. Going back to the Russell Westbrook thing, there was a time where you were trying to put a trade in play for Kyrie. When that fell through, there was a bunch of lies and false support of Russell Westbrook that he knew and caught wind of. The disrespect was blatant. And so we have to stop acting like LeBron is this great, has this great aura on him that he doesn't have. It's really that simple. There's a lot of things that we can say. LeBron James, one of the greatest of this era? Absolutely. Would he have more championships if it wasn't for the Golden State Warriors? You betcha. But to say that he's the GOAT or to act like he represents or speaks for the people of this time, it is not true. Let's not forget the supposed to be checking Stephen A. Smith, this old frail guy, no disrespect because he has actually gotten a little bit better with his health and things of that nature. But supposedly going to check him and you look nervous while you were doing it. This is just stuff that we shouldn't expect from you. At the end of the day, Stephen A. Smith has been a consummate professional. None of the things that were said were actually false about your son. And I understand at the end of the day the things that y'all feel. The best thing that could happen right now is that Bronny actually goes out there and plays meaningful basketball, that he continues to develop and prove everybody wrong. But to attack Stephen A. as if he's the only person that thinks your son didn't really earn the right to play in the NBA. I get it. There's the son and father's son, the Ken Griffey and his father. I get all of that. The difference is Ken Griffey Sr. and Jr. produced. So at the end of the day, let's hope that your son has a tenth of the career. Because right now, he looks no different than Marcus. We shall move on. So, with that being said, all right, let's see what we got here. We got a comment. I really don't understand why my comments aren't popping up. But that's fine. Oh, I think I know why. Here we go. I'm having some weird issues right now, guys. I ain't gonna lie to you. All right. Ms. Reese said, I remember the commotion with Stephen A. I only watched Stephen's response, which was good and insightful. On what show was that as well? Because he spoke about this on a few shows. I actually watched him on The Pivot. And I'll be honest, I think a lot of people have issues with Stephen A. They don't like the type of guy that he is at times. But at the end of the day, I think that he does represent who he actually is. And I think that is more than we can kind of say about LeBron James at times. You know, I don't doubt that he may be a good guy, not arguing with you on that, but I just don't care for some of the riffraff that we kind of run into with him at times. But moving on. Now, we got to talk about the president of these here United States of America. So let me start by saying this. She said The Pivot. Okay, I got you, Miss Reese. So let's get to this, right? And let me say this. Let me start by saying this. Opinions are free, right? Anybody can have one. The danger that we're running into is the free thinker. Your thoughts will cost you more than what you can say sometimes. And having the ability to be a free thinker is under attack in the world today. Not just in the United States. You know, we think about a whole bunch of other places across the world where people can't openly express their religion. They can't openly speak against their government. So this is not something that is new. It has always been a thing in the United States of America and across the world that there's this illusion of what we believe we can do and not do in America. So free thinking is something that is absolutely under attack. And it is important to understand that the land of the free and the home of the brave used to mean something. Or not. It is my belief that being a free thinker and living in America, having your own opinion is just an optical illusion. It is a figment of your imagination. And to quote the late great Biggie Smalls, it was all a dream. The Matrix turned out to be real after all. I'm not somebody who believes in that stuff. I'm not a conspiracy theorist by far. And I believe that even that alone, it draws people to one side or the other. Not feeling strongly about Trump, not feeling strongly about what can be proven or disproven as far as if there's this great plan or plot to take people down or to enslave us. I think it speaks to a greater issue that we'll talk to at the end of this show. But, hold on. We got a comment here from old Reese. Let's bring it up. She said, "Hey, that's my president. He is a funny guy. I watched the live for about 7 minutes, from 7 minutes away from the White House, and he literally referenced Biden as Sleepy Joe and said he didn't do anything." Yeah, and I mean I could dig it. I don't have I've said this a billion times and I'll say it again. I can understand why anybody could dislike Trump. And I can understand why big businesses can fully support and endorse him. Whatever you think, whatever you feel, he has the ability to move the needle. Whether that is to get you a big return on your 401k or to get some things moving in the stock market, he just has the ability to do that. And although that doesn't speak to his morality or his character as a man, we live in a capitalistic society. So if you are able to get on the boat and ride the wave, a guy like Trump is somebody that you would probably support. I am not talking about how he treats people, how he runs the country as a whole. I am talking about simply from a plus and minus side of finances. Being able to make a lot of money, being able to gather a people, being able to speak freely of his own accord, not necessarily speaking to people's ability to speak freely, as we can see what happened to Jimmy Kimmel, who was taken off the air momentarily. It's scary to me that in a world that was built to be unlike any other nation in the world, that somebody like Jimmy Kimmel, whether you agree with him being a funny guy or whatever, for him to be taken off of the air, for his livelihood to be affected because he doesn't agree with the administration is something that is highly dangerous. And for the life of me, why does this keep doing this? For crying out loud. Come on here, guys. I'm sorry. I can't get this to work properly. Let me see. I'm trying to get you guys' comments pulled up. I don't know what the actual problem is tonight. Please tell me that stopped. Jeez Louise. I don't know what's going on with these why my comments aren't coming up tonight. He stay moving the needle with other countries though. He stands his ground. And I'll be honest, I think that some of it is honestly obnoxious, if I'm being completely honest. I think he is who he is. Don't get me wrong. I like the idea of him being able to. I think America's greatest hope is also being squandered with Trump's presidency. Because for years we said we wanted somebody who wasn't held captive by red or blue, right? Now I think in today's society you kind of have to pick a side, right? So you're gonna pick. In his instance, he picks being a Republican, right? It aligns more with what he says he represents. Yeah, but he also does a lot of things that we haven't seen before. And so if we look at some of these things, right? I call them Trumpeteers. I think no other presidency in the history of America has had a guy such as Trump who is able to be so divisive to white Americans. Whether those are rich white Americans or poor white Americans, Trump has the ability to gather them and rally them together in a way like we've never seen before. And I'll be completely honest, I really do scratch my head because I don't know what is so appealing about him at times. Now, whether you like him or dislike him, that is not the important part. The important part is that you actually take a look at what is in play, what is actually going on. Because one of the notes that I actually put down here is that Trump doesn't telegraph anything. Well, he actually does telegraph. I mean, he doesn't hide his hand. When he says he's going to do something, he does it. So when I listened to a Stephen A. Smith say, Trump said he wanted to buy the Bills, the Buffalo Bills, the football team. They didn't allow him to come in. He said, I'm going to stick it to them. I'm going to win the presidency, and I'm going to come for everybody. So when Stephen A. then comes out and says, when we look at the FBI that wrangled up the old NBA players, the Damon Jones, the Chauncey Billups, the Terry Roziers of the world, in this, La Cosa Nostra thing with the mob and all of that, where, there was poker games that were fixed. There were, there was inside information on what, if people were going to be injured, if they were going to play, game time decisions, all of those things were used to affect how people betted. Knowing that LeBron wasn't going to play before the public knew, and then taking the money and then allowing those people to all just lose the money. These are all things that, as I looked at the press conference by the head guy from the FBI, he continued to mention that this administration was not going to have it, and the stance that they were going to take. And it's gaslighting at its finest. The reality is, people, you absolutely have to look at the tea leaves and see what's actually going on. Once again, we're not talking about being conspiracy theorists, as many of you are. We're not talking about being, as I've heard coined before, a do-boy. Being somebody who just wants to go along. Like, I don't understand how we could allow the president of these here United States to affect relationships, personal relationships. We've always been told that you don't talk politics, you don't talk religion, you don't talk race relations, right? But those are a lot of the things that are going to give us the most insight about who people are, how they really think, and how they feel. So if we never talk about who you actually voted for, how do we actually know what we can agree to disagree on, how to actually have a conversation? So Trump, like I said at the beginning of it, does a great job of having his group of people, his Trumpeteers. They are going to stomp around. They're going to go storm the Capitol. They're going to wear hats. They're going to fly flags like it's an NFL event to support a guy who has been less than admirable in the public eye. Now, what I can appreciate and be honest about always is the ability of anybody to live in what they actually believe or think. Now, I'm not talking about having poor morality or low character. I'm saying don't hide who you actually are. I'm not saying that we go yell from a mountaintop that you're a PDF file. No, that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is don't leave me to believe that you're not a bigot and a racist just to make a money deal, but then you're actually stringing people up. That's what I'm talking about. And unfortunately, America hasn't forced those type of people to get better. They actually learn how to hide in plain sight. And so whether it is somebody who's a rapist, whether that is somebody who is a bigot, we've seen that you're essentially just living out what this country has been about for hundreds of years. Let's leave it at that. So, when we look at, like I said, the divisiveness, we talk about the tariffs. Now there's this, so tariffs became this thing where it was going to be hard for people to do business outside the country because there was going to be a premium tax on deals being done, knowing that you're going to get a better deal outside of the country. Labor costs are too high in America. So to create an issue that you can't solve by saying that we're going to find a way to make manufacturing in America cheaper, more efficient, create more jobs, you tell people on the back end now that now we're going to start giving a percentage of the tariffs out to the people. And we know one thing that Americans love is a little bit of cash. If Trump is offering $1,500, I will take it. But it's not going to make me think favorably enough about him to actually vote for him. And that's where we have to start thinking with a more clearer head. Remember what I said at the beginning. Free thinking is under attack in America. And we too often can be swayed by somebody who can put a couple dollars in our pockets. So the promise of divvying out money from tariffs to the people, the government shutdown. Once again, Trump never hid who he was or what he was about. Never. We wanted a president who could fund himself. We wanted a president who would do what he said he was going to do. And guess what? He's doing what he said he was going to do. Now, does it matter when you have Americanized people from other countries, the Hispanic people of the world, who there were people being taken away, deported, that had Trump on their shirts? Is that funny? Is that interesting? Is that reality? We have ICE running around America trying to wrangle up people. Is that wrong? Is that right? One of my friends hit me with a scenario about being in a hospital and having to wait behind people who were quote unquote considered illegals, meaning that you didn't follow the proper protocols to gain entrance into this country. Or what if one of your family members was actually unalived? You have to think about all of these other ways to say stuff. Now I don't even know if it matters on YouTube, but what do you say to somebody who was quote unquote unalived by a small group? I'm not going to say that all people who come from other countries are people who do harm to people. I don't care what statistics say. I can never live in a world where that would be made real, especially given the history of black people in America. But I'm saying if there was a small percentage of people who were given the opportunity, who weren't given the rightful opportunity to follow the proper protocols to come here, and they induced harm on people that were around you, would you give them, as a person viewing, would you give them the right to be a human and go through the proper channels of being judged, taken to court, all of those things? How would you actually feel about that person? Because the reality is this: if you lived in America for long enough, you've thought, you felt, you spoke something that was unfavorable of a person that did not look like you, that didn't have the same skin color, that didn't have your same belief system. But those are the things that we never talk about, because at the end of the day, those are the things that are actually going to bridge the gap for us to actually grow and commune as a people in the right way. I'm not saying that we openly express hate for each other, but I'm saying to be real about what I actually feel means that I have to actually get to the root of why I feel the way that I actually feel. Most things in this country are actually built to divide us. The idea of Republicans and Democrats and liberals and Tea Party members and all of these things were never meant to give us a fair shake at choosing freely what we think or how we feel about something. It was always meant to have us divide. Because the reality is, if we're able to come together, if we're actually able to think about how we're being treated as a whole, to talk about money, to talk about taxes, to talk about belief systems, then that would absolutely work against the system that is in place. But nobody wants to talk about those things. But our president, whom I don't like nor do I dislike, I don't feel a way about somebody who actually cannot really affect my life. See, what Americans do is we feel a way and we blame the president, the people who are in office, the people who have no real say-so over what you do over your life on a day-to-day basis. And we use that as a reason why we can't get ahead, why we can't learn, why we can't go back to school, why we can't raise our kids, why we shove laptops and tablets in front of their faces, why we make bad choices in relation. We'll use anything to blame a person who is never really affecting who we are. The reality is, whether Trump is there, whether it was Biden, nothing changed. Not for you, not for the person that is watching this, but you will never be honest with yourself. And you'll make it seem like because you weren't able to get in on the money dash or whatever it was that person, whatever their agenda was, you'll then blame them for you not making choices and decisions that could benefit you, your family, or its lineage. But this president, the Twitter king, I've never in my life, and I'll be honest, the president, as black people like to call him, Barack Obama, was the first one that I've known of to be on the internet tweeting, sharing his thoughts and opinions, which I have no problem with. I think the approach that Barack took, or the approach that Trump has taken, is the same way that I believe that we should look at firefighters and police officers. I ain't gonna say mailmen, but people in that hold those certain offices where they're seen as more than human because of the job that they're required to do. Is we need to look at a way to humanize these people, or even pastors for that matter. We have to start having real conversations about what these people actually are like, because them representing us in office has nothing to do with what they do in their private time. When you look at things such as the Epstein files, if and I've said this, this is a free platform, it is what it is, but here's the reality. If our president's name is anywhere in those files, they'll never see the light of day. And I think it's about time that y'all got okay with that. I was in Killeen picking my lady up, and we were coming back, and while we were leaving this food place, somebody, a random person, was just walking with his lady, and they had a sign, "Show us the Epstein files." Who are you talking to? Nobody in Killeen in front of a Raising Cane's cares anything about that. But that is the beauty of the country that we live in, is people get to do those things. But see, the things that actually move the needle, once again, are the things that are always going to cost you. And unfortunately, this was just a small flex by Trump to show you what he actually is capable of. The strong arm king, as I call him. Having the ability to take a man off of the air, albeit for a little bit, to put a narrative out there that he doesn't have talent or that he doesn't have the ratings. All because he doesn't agree with you. It's weird because he was also the same person years back when he first was running that talked about how important it was to keep freedom of speech and how it was necessary that we never let this place turn into a tyrannical place where people can't speak their minds. Does anybody remember that? And if you do, how do you feel about it? We can't allow people to live in these spaces. What I am interested, for anybody who may truly be a staunch Trump supporter, or that may have been, what do you feel about that? Is there a reason that you don't feel the way that you feel? Or if you do feel that way, tell me what it is that makes you be so hardcore. Because I've never seen in all of my life, and we can never lose the reality that America has been and in my opinion, always will be racially divided. You will always look across, especially if you are not a believer. And here's the thing, and I'm saying a true believer, because nothing has changed since slavery time, that people will use the Bible to justify the way that they treat other human beings. So in my opinion, it is so deeply rooted and baked within the foundation of this country that the same thing that'll make you laugh will be the same thing that'll make you cry. Shout out to Dorothy Louise. The same thing that gives you the freedom. Here's the reality. Even if we go back and look at the Charlie Kirk situation, this is a man who had a family, who had a wife, and whether he was rage baiting on college campuses, whether he was overtly being a supporter of Trump in a way that could seem a bit delusional at times, we enjoyed coming to this country because of the same thing that Charlie Kirk was actually doing. And I've seen his name on billboards, and let's be clear, I'm not sure if the man was actually a racist or not, and you don't either. We live in a time where 90 to 120 minute clips are taken severely out of context. Now, I'm not saying that he was Mother Teresa or Buddha or Gandhi. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is, most people would not take the time to actually do the research upon watching a 30, 90, or minute and 20-second clip to actually find out who this man was. And that man was brutally murdered on national television. That doesn't seem like a country that is free to me. And I'm just a black guy in America. But I tell you what, I am grateful that I get to sit on a platform and speak whatever I want to speak, as long as I am not encouraging hatred, bigotry, or racial profiling of any sort. I don't know if we're actually getting that from the highest seat. So hopefully my mic was not on. Oh brother. The good thing is y'all can hear me in some capacity this whole time. Thank you, Randy C. Mays. Anyway, so as I was saying, if you have lived under a rock, I do believe that Stephen A. Smith is correct. I don't know if it is a grand plan by Trump to come take down the NBA. I'm not gonna be like most people and just believe that is not what is going on. Once again, I believe that the people that we are living with, okay, cool. I think there's a certain way that you can actually hear the sound when it's coming through the microphone versus if the mic wasn't actually coming through. But either way, thank you for checking in and letting me know that the mics were working. If you've been rocking with me thus far, please hit the like and please subscribe. I would appreciate it. It costs nothing to you but a second. And please share this with somebody so we can continue to talk about this. But yes, free speech in this world, in this country, has been everything but that. Every black leader that has lived, every real black leader that had a platform, because there are black leaders across this world. And here's my thing. As a believer, I am not one to make a big deal about if the person is white, black, Mexican, Asian, whatever, Filipino. We just so happen to be the ones, because we are black, to pay attention to black issues. But if you look at Fred Hampton, if you look at Malcolm X, if you look at Martin Luther King, if you go to Africa, Gaddafi, it's so many people who have lost their lives for going against what the general consensus was. So my point is, things aren't really as free as they seem. Everything has appeared to be a level of an illusion to make people feel safe. When you have concepts such as the mob effect, where if a group starts doing something, it is typically going to trickle into everybody. All right, Ms. Reese said, oh, okay. That's content creative expertise with understanding the mic sounds. Yes, ma'am. So, when you have something like the mob effect, where once one person or a few people do something in a crowd, it typically can trickle down. The illusion of safety or security is something that is truly an illusion, right? In today's world, we don't fight wars and will not in the future fight wars the same way that we always have. When you talk about the inception of AI, or you talk about robots or chemicals, these are all things that make the illusion of safety be something that it isn't really. So in my opinion, or my thought process, what we tend to do to not focus on these things, which to be honest, I don't think that we should focus on those things, is we learn to entertain ourselves to death. I put something like that on social media. Is we're perfectly okay entertaining ourselves to death as long as we get to choose what the entertainment is. I actually sat back and thought for a second about what America represents. What can America call its own? And it came to one word: consumerism. Name me one thing in America that doesn't involve money. Name me one thing in America, whether we're watching TV, whether we're driving around, that doesn't involve marketing, advertising, spending money, selling, buying. Consumerism is the gift and the curse that is America. And so you can believe that if it's a war, if it's tariffs, if it's the Super Bowl, if it's Easter, there's a dollar sign that is attached to it every single time. Now, I, like any other American, whether we talk about the illusion of what is the pursuit, what is the American dream? I would love for somebody who maybe somebody I don't know. I don't know if I know everybody that is on this live right now. But what is the American dream? Is it attainable? Does it have parameters? I listened to a guy talk about the music industry and what you have to do to attain a certain amount of wealth. How there's a ceiling that you hit if you actually aren't a part of some pretty wicked things. How he witnessed himself hit a ceiling. I personally, I don't know. I mean, I think I could, most things I believe I could go with. Meaning, you say the Illuminati exists, sure, I believe you. Are there always people who are trying to gain power and control? Yes, I can believe that. Are there people who don't care about what it looks like as long as they can also get a piece of that pie? Yes. There are people always willing to sell themselves, their souls, for a little piece of what they think is the American dream, or happiness, or wealth, you name it. What I am encouraging is that we look beyond what we actually think. This isn't what you think it is. This isn't really about Trump. This isn't really about tariffs. This is about opening your eyes to things that actually really matter in life. Because consumerism is always, in this world, on this side of the dirt, gonna matter unless there's something higher to achieve or to strive towards. Free speech and free thinking are important, but not nearly as important as knowing who God is. Not nearly as important as knowing what He wants for your life. And not nearly as important as knowing what he wants to do with your freedom. Everybody wants to talk about freedom, not knowing that there's one key thing that makes freedom all the more important and all the more satisfactory. And that is a word that is called boundaries. If you have a field and you throw seed randomly and let it fall, those seeds are going to grow without boundaries. They're going to grow wherever they hit the ground. And whether that's good or whether that's bad, I have no real idea or opinion about it, because that's the reality, right? But I know that if you take those seeds and you till the ground and you put them in individual little spots and you section them off, that you'll have an idea of how those seeds will develop with order. In this world, we don't care about order. We don't care about boundaries. And if you're paying attention, they're desiring for you to not care about who God is, what he says, or what he wants for your life. Every platform that I touch, no matter how current event the topic is, no matter how fun the sport is, we have to get into the weeds about the reality of what it is all about. It's not about Trump. It's about you. And are you aimlessly wandering through life trying to just make it through another day? Tariffs aren't going to change anything about your life. Trump isn't going to change anything about your life. Them marching the Capitol, marching on the Capitol had nothing to do with your life. It was an opinion. You were able to give your opinion to your co-workers, to your friends, to your family. But the facts are, whatever it is that you say you want out of life, whatever it is that you are desiring to work towards, it requires a filter. Because for any of us to freely do anything in life is going to cause destruction eventually. So, do we have any thoughts? Do we have any comments? Got a little deep there. In my opinion. But overall, I don't believe that any of these things are really meant to cultivate you into being somebody that is a free thinker. Everything is meant to pull you to one side or the other. And at some point, we can't keep the choosing of the sides shouldn't be attached to an elephant or a donkey, a red or a blue. It has to be to your allegiance. Where's your allegiance to the God of the universe or that other person, other thing? I don't know. You decide. Listen, man. This was quick. Kind of quick. 48 minutes. I appreciate anybody who tapped in. Thank you for hitting that like. Thank you for commenting. I appreciate my old faithfuls. I got to get back in the lab and figure out some of these things about this because my comments weren't coming up. My mic was off. I need the help of a producer ASAP who can run this stuff for me. But in the meantime, I will figure it out and continue to be better. Thank you. Listen, man, life is hard enough. So please don't just live elevated. Until next time, I love you. May the Lord keep you. And I'll see you at the conference. I'll see you next week. Peace.